On 086 000 2032.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. It's the open line. I'm still taking your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial this morning. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. Yeah, David from Tlanga, before we went to news, you heard that story. Somebody retaliating with explosives, going to bomb somebody's house over a fight that started out at a bar, really? And he's lamenting the high levels of crime. And one just has to ask, how is it that ordinary citizens are just in possession of explosives, right? How is it that this is just everyday life? These are things that we're able to access. Incredibly concerning. Let me go to KZN. Nana Ngobesa, good morning to you.
Morning, Sis Cathy. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Cathy, I'm very depressed. You know, sorry, I had to lie to your producers to say I wanted to talk about Israel. Yes, I do want to talk about Israel and support the first caller who said Americans are not the right people to negotiate for the ceasefire. That you can't actually give somebody a gun and continue supporting them when they actually are going to shoot the other person. Honestly, it doesn't make sense. That I think I agree with 100% with him. But more than anything else, Kathy, we lost 18 lives in one shot. One. In this country. It's painful. We are at the level of crimes that I think are unprecedented. And I wish actually all stations would just take one day, all of them in this country, and put everything to a standstill and start allowing us to talk about this. People are living in pain. Women were mowed down. Children were mowed down. It doesn't make sense. And it's just not only that incident. A young man phoned earlier on today with the presenter this morning. He experienced something similar in the very same village. Where is everyone who is supposed to look after the communities? It's painful.
Nana, in what ways do you think that we need to be having the conversation differently? Because there isn't necessarily a lack of reporting or even an under-reporting. Every day you can switch on your radio, switch on your TV news screens. There is a story about violent crime in this country. So it's not that the information is not being shared, but what conversation are we not having about about these crimes that you think is not creating an opportunity for South Africans to feel heard? And you know, and I'm posing this question not just to you, but to any of our listeners that are tuned in this morning, because the reality is we lament and we report and we lament and we report, but it just gets worse and worse.
Kate, there was a time when we went to the streets to get rid of apartheid and many other things. I think we should start mobilizing and do something different because, like you're saying, you're right. I mean, we talk about it every day and we become powerless the more we feel like we can't do anything. Yet, I think South Africans, when they are decided, they can actually go to the streets, do something that is actually going to make sure that crime is not an order of the day in this country. We can't continue like this. Thank you so much.
Nana, thanks for that contribution. Nana Ngobese out in KZN saying maybe it's time to go back to the streets, time for mass protests around the issue of crime and show just how untenable the levels of crime in the country are. And we know that they are untenable. I mean, just across the TV news screens this morning, all I'm seeing is reporters out different locations. All of it, a significant portion of the coverage, different stories of crime. But what must happen now? So beyond the reporting, Mlenze, you're in KZN. Good morning, Mlenze.
Morning, Cathy. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, you feel like you've got a flu today.
Don't worry, Mlenze. This is the better part. I've recovered from flu now. I had flu.
We thank God for that.
Mm.
Yeah. No, Cathy, today I'm talking sports, especially Chiefs Sundowns game and the Pirate Richards Bay game in Richardson that took place in Umlazi yesterday. Cathy, we've got a long history of football here in South Africa. We know during the days of apartheid how the professional leagues were structured. We used to have NSL, NPSL, and then we used to have a league which was, we used to call it a League of Indians. And then there was another league in Bophuthatswana up there. Bophuthatswana was led by Lucas Mangope back then. All those leagues were put together, and they were grouping during the formation of the NFL. There was a group that was led by Steve Morewa, and there was a group that was led by Jomo Sono. Steve Morewa team, a group was called A team, and the Jomo Sono group was called B team. And then I don't know, it take longer, but all those groupings, their strongness or weaknesses were manifested or shown, displayed on the pitch during the game time when their teams are playing. What is happening now, we are seeing Sundowns assisted by Kenny Jordan, muscling everybody on the way to achieve what they want to achieve, which is to retain the PSL title. Sundowns, as it stands, if we follow the FIFA rules or any football rules that we have in the land or in the world, Sundowns did not won that game.
I'll break
it down for you. I'll break it down for you, Katie. I'll break it down for you. The second goal, Katie, because we're going to cut me because of time. Let me finish my story clear. The second goal, when Mshishi received that ball on a right flank, Mshishi was offside. Then he crossed to that boy whom they bought from the Steelers. I think it's Haynes. Then he scored. He scored a beautiful goal, but the receiver and the passer of the ball, which was Mshishi, he was offside. Then coming to the second goal of Kaizer Chiefs, when Mfundo Vilakazi crossed that ball, the person who scored that goal was onside, and I can even tell you who played him onside. Mutau played the person who scored the goal for Kaizer Chiefs onside. So the Kaizer Chiefs goal was supposed to stand.
Mlenze.
And all these mistakes are happening coming from the side of a linesman who was on the right-hand side of the pitch, on the side where the benches of the teams were sitting. That linesman leave a lot to be desired about him, and I like PSL and SAFA to take real issues with him. Not the referee, because the referee was guided by the flag which was raised by the linesman.
You know what, Mlenze?
Yes.
You know what? I think let's just have VAR once.
Once and for all.
Yes, let's have VAR so that some of these issues can be resolved when it comes to local football.
We are correct. Maybe that will assist us big time, especially because we've just hosted World Cup. We've got the state-of-the-art facilities now to play football. Even the one in Umlazi where Richards Bay is playing, that ground can have a VAR. Then let me quickly come to that game there, which happened yesterday between Pirates and Richards Bay. There the game started very well, and then even though they played a very bad football, I must say, I think it's because I had watched Chiefs and Sundowns the previous day. But when I came to Sundown, to Pirates and the Richards Bay, I found the standard very much difference between them. And then, just in between 10 minutes of the start of the game, the young man by the number of 36, it was my first time seeing that young man playing. He just went over, plunged over the Richards Bay person who was charging towards the goal to score a goal with no cover behind him within 10 minutes. He did not tackle him. Have you watched the World Cup, right, of a rugby? When Siakolis is grabbing a person, that's what he did. And the referee did not give that boy a red card. Why? We don't know, but we're going to assume that is because the chairperson of the PFL is also the chairperson of Pirates. Like it's happening with Sundowns.
Okay, Mlenze, let's do this. So I can hear you are an absolute sport fanatic and you know your sport like the back of your hand. What you can also do, of course, is to have a more meaningful discussion. Call in during the sports show later on in the day at 7 o'clock so that you can just fully unpack some of those issues, because I feel like I'm not doing it justice, at least to the level that you would want it. But I do agree with you, especially after that game between Chiefs and Sundowns, that the calls for the introduction of VAR need to be heeded to avoid some of these challenges. And I know as a Chiefs fan, we were just, coming up nicely, but we mustn't lose hope. We're going to get back. But I hear you, Mlenze. Stephen, you're in Soweto. Good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Ronele guy, Stephen.
I want to yeah. The United Nations, what is it? The Security Council that was proposed by our president of South Africa spoke about the United Nations, that there has to be 2 countries that must represent in the Security Council, right? Like sitting with the 5, those who have veto powers. I'm proposing Botswana to actually really to represent that South Africa, Africa down south, right? Because if you look at the economy of Botswana is enjoying the economy, right? 144 units of electricity in Botswana, you pay 199 rands or 200 rands, which is plus, 200, which is plus minus 256 rands, right? Whereas in South Africa, I don't want to say how much do we pay, how are we being ripped off, right? So Botswana, again, remember the president of Botswana took the bull by the horns, the big diamond mining companies, and said, look, Botswana should actually get a certain percentage, something that has never happened in South Africa since the dawn of democracy. You look at the stability in Botswana, there is real stability in the way that you don't even look over your shoulders when you walk, right? So really handsome actually raising the flag of Botswana, and it's actually Independence Day in Botswana from 1901.
So Stephen, do you get a sense that the quality of life is better for people in Botswana than it is for us as South Africans?
What is the quality of life? Maybe I'll be able to respond.
Well, all of the things that you've touched on speak to quality of life. You've talked about the cost of living. You've talked about security. All of those issues speak to the quality of life. They influence one's quality of life.
Oh yeah. And then you look at the youth, the youth in terms of the NSFAS, the education policy in Botswana, right? The Botswanas are all over the world, and they've been asked to, once they're actually done with their studies, to look for jobs that wherever they are. You understand? Whereas here we can hardly manage to manage NSFAS, which is very vital for our children. You understand? So how can we be able to be at the United Nations Security Council if we cannot look after ourselves?
All right, Stephen in Soweto, we'll leave it there. All right, interesting view there. If we can't get it right at home, how do we expect to get it right at the UN Security Council? And that's really for a country, having a country on the continent get a permanent seat on the council. It's something that's been advocated for years and years. The continent has been speaking about it for a long time. But of course, the reform in and of itself is going to take much longer than what we have seen. Stembile, you're in KwaMashu. Good morning.
Oh, Cathy, good morning. How are you?
Stembile, I'm well. I'm answering now for the last time. No more, how are you?
No. We have to say how are you because this side you're not doing well.
Okay.
Because
tell me what's wrong, Stembile.
Because of jealous. The real jealous that took me to grow up first in order to understand jealous. There's jealous that comes from the group of people who are poor, and there is the jealous that comes from the people who are already having, people who are rich, people who are in the middle class who doesn't understand the problem that we are facing here at the bottom. Here in KwaMashu, kids are killing each other. In fact, almost all the provinces where there is poverty, we are killing each other, we steal from each other. All this it is caused by the fake democracy that we have. If we had a real democracy, we wouldn't be having all this chaos. This chaos it is coming from the people who are having jealous for the black people, for the natives.
Okay, Stembile, let's talk about this issue of jealousy and why you say that jealousy is at the heart of the crime issue that you're also wanting to raise.
Yes. Because you see, the people who are already having, the rich, the people who buy these political parties that we vote for. Mm-hmm. They don't want the people to be developed, especially the natives. They want to keep us being poor so that they can control us, so that they can keep us being customers and the slaves, work for them. That is jealous. Why you wouldn't want to see another person next to you being developed? It is jealous.
Okay, but the political parties are the ones that develop their own policies, and South Africans are the ones that vote for the political parties.
No. These political parties, they are being owned by this one. Please, just tell me one political party that is strictly owned by the natives, that speaks truly to us. Why it takes ages for us to be free? Why it takes overnight to pass a law that it doesn't make an effect to us?
Stembile, if people believed that these parties are not owned or not run by the political party leaders that we see, then why are they voted for?
No, voting and putting an act is nothing compared to people who are meeting before the electoral conference and putting money deciding who's going to lead the country.
No, Stembile, the power lies in the vote. As long as South Africans are voting for political parties and they are choosing leaders, the very same leaders that you are describing, then that's a choice that we as citizens must sit with and reflect on.
So what I'm saying, the buying of vote with the electoral conferences within the political parties, I'm not talking about the national elections. I'm just talking about the people who are being chosen to lead a specific political party. In this case, maybe we can talk about ANC. People who are chosen who are going to lead. It's not me here in KwaMashu who chose Ramaphosa. It's not me here in KwaMashu who chose the guy who was Senzo Mchunu, and this guy, I even forgot about him now. You see, because you see here in KwaMashu, there is no, I cannot tell you that maybe the black it is actually ruling. Because people who are controlling this country are the white people, and the so-called government, it's the money that is being put to these political parties. That is our government.
Okay, Stembile KwaMashu, we'll leave it there. Look, Stembile, I'm trying to hear your frustration, but at the same time, we cannot absolve ourselves of the responsibility and of the outcomes of our own votes. We can't. And when it comes to political party accountability, that rests with us. It's not somebody out there that has to hold political parties accountable. That rests with us, either as people who vote for these parties or people who are members of these parties. We can't absolve ourselves of that responsibility. I'm back after this with more of your calls.
Four dynamic design duos reimagine and reinvent 4 apartments in a century-old building nestled in the vibrant suburb of Sea Point, Cape Town. Armed with creativity, determination, and a limited budget, the duos fight against the clock to transform this grand old dame into a contemporary masterpiece, all under the critical eyes of an expert judging panel. The winning duo will claim a grand prize of 300,000 Rand, with an additional 100,000 Rand going to the fan favorite team, as voted by viewers. Channel your inner wow with My Design Rules, Sundays at 7 p.m, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Win your share of 50,000 Rand when you play Winning at Live with One Life. Don't forget to enter on our website, safm.co.za. Stay tuned to the morning brief on SAFM. Keep your phone on loud and we might be the one to change your life. One Life is a licensed life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. One Life, changing lives.
Becoming Elizabeth is the fascinating story of the early life of England's most iconic queen. With no clear heir, the death of King Henry VIII sets into motion a dangerous scramble for power. Elizabeth's fascinating and factual journey to secure the crown is filled with scheming, betrayal, and illicit relationships that threaten to bring forth her demise. At a time in which every man or woman of the court is on the wheel of fortune, which may take them to a position of great power one moment, or the executioner's block the next. Channel your inner royalty with Becoming Elizabeth, Saturdays at 9:30 p.m, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM. Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, still taking your calls for the open line. Let me go to Centurion. Percy, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good, Percy, go for it.
Straight to the point. I'm the crime in South Africa. I somehow feel like we are actually our security system in South Africa. It's handling these criminals with white gloves.
Mm.
We are in a space where we have given a lot of rights to our criminals to a point whereby they sometimes even come our way of judging them, our way of actually giving them judgments. Because if you are to speak to police individually at some point, they will tell you about the Human Rights Commission, they will tell you about watchdogs. But Mr. Mukhwanazi in KwaZulu-Natal has proven that all those things might actually just be an excuse if you need to deal with crime, with criminals in South Africa. I wish all provinces were to be extremely active like Mr. Mukhwanazi in KwaZulu-Natal. Imagine how much people were going to actually be out of this picture. Because at the time, I think dealing with crime, it's killing them. We must not really be apologetic about that. Because those guys, if they are to come for you, they don't have all those rules and regulations which we are even being given when we are sold firearms. If they want to shoot you and kill you now, you are dead. As simple as that. So if in South Africa, all these provinces are to be as active as Mr. Mukhwanazi down there in KZN, believe me, we will shake quite a lot. So now this thing is happening in one hand somewhere there. Where else we've got 9 provinces, which all of them, you speak to them, they'll tell you about watchdogs. They'll tell about human rights commission.
Although Percy, it's not happening out of context, right? What you have in KZN is not police just going to kill suspected or alleged criminals at random, right? You have particular incidents and raids that are being carried out, and in the process of that, police then coming under threat, at least as we've been told, and them responding and retaliating accordingly. And so it mustn't be this picture that the police in KZN are just going out and killing the criminals or the alleged criminals there. There's a context within which it is happening.
My issue about that is that in these other provinces, people of those calibers, which those guys are actually follow them on a daily basis. These other provinces, they know them. They will even complain to say these guys are handling a big firearms. We can approach them like that easy. So my issue is in these other provinces, we know them. If the community knows them, remember, all communities we've got police. There's no any community that you will not find a police there and there and there. We know all of them. We know them in our communities. They are not being followed because they seem to be more strong than our police.
Okay.
So in KwaZulu-Natal, what I see is those guys who will follow you, whether you seem to be labeled very strong or not.
So you get a sense that the police there are braver than elsewhere in the country.
We are in danger in South Africa. That's all I can say. We are in a very huge danger, and I don't know how we're going to get out of this.
All right, Percy
But thank you very much.
We're going to have to leave it there. That also brings us to the end of the open line, at least for the first hour of the show. It's 10 o'clock, time for the latest news update.
In our top stories, DA warns the ANC to reinstate Brink as Tshwane mayor, and with alert warning to KZN residents. Good morning. The DA has warned the ANC to reinstate Celia Brink as Tshwane mayor, or the party will no longer enter into any talks to save other municipalities. Brink, who's been City of Tshwane mayor since March 2023, was removed from office through a motion of no confidence sponsored by the ANC during Thursday's ordinary council sitting. DA Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zillis says there's got to be a give and take between parties in the GNU.
You cannot have economic growth and investment in the metros if they are unstable and if there are motions of no confidence every second month and if there is very little service delivery. So we have started tentative discussions around stabilizing Nelson Mandela Bay, eThekwini and Ekurhuleni. Those are absolutely critical, and we have been in tentative local discussions to start resolving those problems. I've said to the ANC that unless Celia Brink is put back in Tshwane, we are not going to play nice in the other metros.
The South African Police Services say they are close to making an arrest in the Lusikisiki mass shooting. In the early hours of Saturday, 17 people were shot and killed in 2 separate homes in Ngobazana village in the Eastern Cape. The victims are said to be relatives and neighbors who were preparing for a traditional ritual scheduled to take place later that day. The death toll has now risen to 18 as the latest victim succumbed to injuries in hospital yesterday. National Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate.
I can confirm that our members have collected all evidence from the scene. They have interviewed key witnesses and community members. They remain hard at work in analyzing all available information, and they are following up all leads. We are confident that we will effect the necessary arrest soon. We are not rushing our detectives and our forensic teams that have been on the ground since this incident happened. So we are not putting undue pressure on them. We do not want mistakes. We are avoiding unlawful arrests.
The 70-year-old farmer who allegedly ran over a 6-year-old boy with his vehicle is expected to appear again in the Vredendal Regional Court in the Western Cape today. The farmer allegedly drove straight towards the boy and his mother when they were walking in the area. He was arrested on the 20th of this month after leaving the boy with fractures to both his legs. The battle for the Bavenda kingship throne will resume at the Polokwane High Court today. Princess Masindi Mpepu, daughter of the late King Chimangadzo Mpepu Ramabulana, is challenging her uncle Tony Mpepu Ramabulana for the throne. The legal contestation over the throne began in 2012. Lutendo Bobodi reports.
When the court adjourned in July, several witnesses had been called to testify in the case. This included cultural experts, a former member of the Mpepu royal family, as well as Masindi's aunt. More witnesses, including former acting king David Mpepu and his sister Poppy Mpepu, are expected to be cross-examined this week. The court has been scheduled to sit for 5 days.
A level 1 warning for disruptive rain along the coastal areas of KwaZulu-Natal remains in place today. In a statement, the Provincial Department of Cooperative Governance says the warning issued by the South African Weather Service includes the Ugu, Mkanyakude, Ilembe, Kinkechwayo districts and the eThekwini Metro. The MEC for Cooperative Governance, Thulasizwe Buthelezi, says municipalities have been directed to provide shelter for residents that might be displaced by the heavy rains. Residents are urged to avoid low-lying areas that may be prone to flooding during the heavy rains. Meanwhile, weather conditions at Van Riebeeck and Spas remains clear this morning with no disruptions reported as yet on the N3 highway. Further afield, and finally, the United Kingdom will shut down its last coal-fired power station later today, becoming the first G7 country to fully phase out coal. Radcliffe-on-Soar in central England has been generating electricity for nearly 60 years. The plant will close as part of the UK's goal to decarbonise its energy supply by the end of the decade. Recapping the top story, the DA has warned the ANC to reinstate Celia Brink as Tshwane mayor, or the party will no longer enter into any talks to save other municipalities. For SAFM News, I'm Anne Musa.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
6 after 10 o'clock, welcome to the second hour of The Talking Point. Coming up in this hour, we are going to be focusing on the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. The Minister, Mzwanele Nyonso, is going to be in conversation with me throughout the hour. So we'll be getting into that conversation shortly. And as always, you're more than welcome to participate, be part of it. It is 100 days since he has taken up office, and we'll find out then what is the program of action, especially when it comes to the all-important issues around land for the majority of South Africans. It is still a very emotive issue in our country. He comes from the PAC. He's the president of the PAC, leading this particular department. There are, of course, those differences in terms of what his party would want to see happen versus what is government policy. So we'll have that discussion too. Before we get into it, your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Good morning, Cathy and the SFM listeners. Regarding this case of 17 people shot, this is not a criminality whereby somebody was just walking and decided to shoot. It's a well-planned thing. It's people who knew that we are going to get these people at a gathering. So we need to separate criminality with the actual intention and the just random criminality. If investigations are done properly, you will find that these people were killed by relatives who knew exactly that they are at a gathering. Thanks. That's where we need intelligence. Thanks, James in Johannesburg.
Good morning, Cathy. This is Mohlahlana from Pretoria. Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about the public taking some responsibility with regard to the decisions that the politicians make. But it does seem like there's a disconnect. There should be like empowerment of the masses, because when you say that we are responsible, what are we supposed to do to hold the politicians accountable? We need political education on the ground so that we know what to do when things happen. We don't know, obviously. That is why we're complaining on the radio.
Morning, Cathy. This is Vicky Body from Porsche in Bosman. Listen, Cathy, I assume that you are a Sundowns fan. Mlenze is 100% right. By the way, I'm not there. I'm in the issue of the killing in South Africa. I mean, police must do very much harder. They must try harder. And we have to support them. But if the very same police are corrupt, how are you going to manage to do that? Criminals must be dealt with. Thank you.
Good morning, Sisketi. I just want to comment about the game between Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns. I'm crying, Sisketi, as a Kosi fan. I'm crying. The referees, You see, what is so painful is because Sundowns, from last season, they've been benefiting from the referees. And nothing is happening. So, yesterday, Sisketi, were the supporters from Eastern Cape, Cape Town, all the provinces, and they witnessed the daylight robbery like that. It was so painful. This is Bongane from Welbedash East.
Morning, Cathy. This is Mpume from Cape Town. On the issue of crime, one of the things you notice immediately when you travel to some other countries, even within Africa, is how free you become. You know, I've had the privilege of traveling overseas, and people are walking in town 10 at night. Young ladies are going out and having a good time, and they get home, and we've forgotten that sense of freedom. You know, now when somebody's out at night, you're not feeling well until they tell you that they've arrived safe. So it's become, we've normalized something that is not normal. And yes, I agree with one of the callers who said something must be done.
Good morning, Cathy. It's Mr. Soliman. Cathy, I want to speak to the Israeli affair at the moment. This Israeli affair has been going on from 1947, Cathy, and you can see all the lies from that time up to today. Look at the point where it is at the moment. So what the USA and NATO and Israel decides is they work in cahoots. They help each other to kill innocent people because they want something out of this world and we don't know what. Thank you. Bye.
Good morning, Cathy. I wonder if our government is going to intervene in that matter of poisoning and how the opposition in Swaziland are asking for our government to intervene there. I feel sorry for them because I don't think that our government is going to intervene in the matters of Swaziland. The ANC only intervenes in matters that bring the most publicity. Swaziland is too insignificant. It is not on the level of Palestine or Russia. It won't bring the ANC enough fame and glory. Besides, the people of Swaziland are not Russian enough, neither are they Palestinian enough to deserve the attention of the ANC. Thanks, Lionel Woodbank.
Hello, you're speaking to Soyama in King Williamstown. When I woke up this morning, I woke up thinking about all these illegal clinics of abortions that are all over our country. I think the government should do something about this thing. They've let these people to do all this thing for a long period of time. We know when going around town, you'll be seeing all these papers telling us about the illegal abortions. So I don't think it's the right thing to be doing, because there is a right way to do the abortion. So I don't know why the government is letting these people to go by to doing all these things, because these things killing our kids. They go to there to do the abortions there, and they come out there something wrong. So I think the government should do something about the illegal abortions.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Well, as the Government of National Unity marks its 100 days, at least since inception towards the end of the month, we are looking then at what it is that various ministers have been able to accomplish within their portfolios, now that they've had the opportunity of also getting to grips with what the state of affairs in their departments is. One such minister, Mzwanele Nyontro, is the Minister for Land Reform and Rural Development. He's also the PAC president. He joins us now. Minister, good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Morning to you, Cathy, and morning to the viewers of SAFM.
Perhaps let's begin with your reflections so far on the Government of National Unity, of course. The PAC joining the GNU came at almost the 11th hour, and many people were in fact quite surprised by the fact that the PAC had decided to be part of the GNU. But your reflections on the last 3 months?
Firstly, yes, you are right, Cathy. People were surprised because PAC is always surprising people every election. Even the decision to join GNU surprised some. But truth is, as an organization that has an NEC and an organization that believes in the collective decisions, so the PAC had to take this decision in the interest of our people and in the best interest of the country. So yes, we participated. But Cathy, in the past 3 months, it was an interesting journey, more especially from me, who have been outside of government. So it was an interesting journey that I had to learn how government operates, that I had to understand how this department understands. But of course, I had to first understand the executive management of the department. I had that opportunity to meet with all of them, the leadership within the department. They took me through with some of things that were happening, including meeting the former minister, Mayor Togodidiza, who handed over what she has been doing in the past 5 years. So that was the journey that took me almost 1.5 months, because it's one of the hectic departments in this country. So that was it. But interesting, Cathy, because it involves, let me call it service delivery department, because you talk to people every day. You understand what people are saying every day. You listen to problems, because as you know, land has always been an item of conflict in this country, and people want land, and you know where I'm coming from. We believe that once we resolve the land question, the half of the problems of our country would have been resolved. But Cathy, there's a challenge which I said I want to focus on, which is the challenge for now, which is the challenge of land claims, where people have been lodging or were lodging claims or lodged claims as far as 1998. So when I came inside, I realized that there are two categories of these claims. Others were lodged in 1998, and there are about 5,900 somewhere there. Then there are claims that were lodged in 2014, which are almost 130,000. Now, I realized that there was a court judgment that says before we attend to 2014 land claims, we must focus on 1998 land claims. So that's where we are right now, trying to focus on what was lodged in 1998, and we are getting there. That's what we are doing right now.
Before I get into the nitty-gritty around your department and how you envision then the fast-tracking processes, including of the land claims, do you get a sense overall that there is stability within the government of national unity? Of course, there are partners like yourself that are a lot quieter than others. If I'm to give the example of what we're seeing now with the back and forth between the DA and the ANC, how do you as the other partners look on the public reporting, the commentary, and really these two entities seemingly being at each other's throats almost every week?
Cathy, I always see that there's a sense of unity within the GNU, because what I always see, or what is always playing out there within the media cycles, I've not seen it within the government. I've seen the DA federal leader always talking outside, but unfortunately for her or for me, I've never met her inside government structures. So this, what is happening outside, we don't experience it inside. Inside government of national unity, we see unity, we see respect amongst GNU partners. That's all I can say, Cathy, for now about it.
Okay, well that is absolutely encouraging. So when you came into your portfolio, you of course were still making commitments around trying to see how you were going to have the PAC's position on land reform in the country find its way into the department. In fact, you were talking about how you're going to push for amendments to the Constitution, and in particular that you wanted to scrap Section 25 of the Constitution. So now that you are in the department and you're having to get to grips with government policy and also the reality of being the implementer of government policy, what's your outlook now?
My outlook, Cathy, is that one, things are different from within and from outside of government, and I think we, as I've been navigating the past 3 months and consulting and meeting people, including legal gurus who understand, legal issues around land. And my view is that, let me begin with this. I call them, Cathy, low-hanging fruits. This thing of addressing land claims, this thing of making sure that people get what they call title deeds so that they are able to access resources. This thing of allocating land, there are policies here that you must give farms to women, to the youth, to people living with disability, and of course to military veterans. So for now, that's where we are focusing upon. Also, my other experience that shocked me, Cathy, and I have been saying in the department, we need to talk to our people. When you go to these communities and try to understand their problems with these claims, our people prefer money, not land. So when you go to them, they say, no, we want land. We want money, we don't want land. And it's a worrying factor, Cathy, for me, because you get money, you use the money, and you don't have money, you don't have land within 30 days. So I was saying we need to educate our people that they must go for land, because land, once you get land, you also get what we call post settlement support, which is money that you must also receive to work the land. But it's a worrying factor, more especially in Eastern Cape. Almost everybody is just going for money, not for land. So these experiences, Katie, that I'm still trying to grapple with as in these past 3 months, and as I'm moving forward, that people are not saying what we would want them to say, that get the land, get the support, work the land. Because once you have land, you are going to be your own employer. You are going to work the land and create job opportunities, employ other people. The land will be productive, will also produce food and so on. But our people are saying, give us money. For example, in Eastern Cape only, the department has committed 1.8 billion only on land claims. So these are things that are worrying me, Kathy, going forward. But we are hoping that last week we were in KZN. I was saying the same thing to people and they seem to understand. But I see it's going to take us too long for them to understand the importance of land versus money.
So, Mr. Nyoncho, it sounds to me then that you've had quite an enlightenment around issues of land in this country in a way that perhaps you were not, fully aware of before. Am I correct in that assessment?
No, you might be. You see, I'm not sure whether you're talking about how the PAC views the question of land, but I'm talking about how the people view the land as we crisscross the country and try to settle their claims, because they call the office, they visit the office, we visit communities, but when we get there, they sing completely different tune, more especially in Eastern Cape, but other provinces, your Northwest, your Limpopo, I was happy that they wanted land, and already we have restored thousands of hectares to some in Northwest, to some in KZN. But I'm only saying it's a worrying factor that people do not understand the importance. Some don't understand the importance of land, and we're educating them that they must prefer for land over money, because land will have support of money.
So you spoke about then your low-hanging fruit, which is dealing with the backlog. From an overall policy perspective then, where would you say the PAC is currently? Because yes, you've had all of these consultations with lawyers, you've had to grapple with what the implications of even scrapping a Section 25 of the Constitution would look like. So what then is practical for the PAC right now? Because you're still on the ticket of the PAC, and I assume that there's still a way in which you would want what your constituency believes in represented.
No, I'm still on the ticket of the PAC, you are right, but inside government, I'm on the ticket of government. I can't come and implement the policies of the PAC as they are, because remember, PAC did not win elections. And if PAC had won elections, I would be talking a complete different language, because I would come and implement PAC policies. But now this is Government of National Unity, and PAC is part of the Government of National Unity, and we implement the prescripts, the laws of the department. But we are trying to make sure that our constituents, which is African people, get back their land. Hence, all these consultations. So it's not what the PAC think, it's what the government has as a policy inside of how to redistribute land. And that is what we're doing right now. We're not implementing PAC policies.
Which is fair enough. But in what ways? So what are the proposals that the PAC is going to be putting before this government of national unity when it comes to the issue of land? Because there must be ways in which you are going to ensure that your voice is represented.
It is represented, Cathy. 2 weeks ago, I was tabling in Parliament how I see for example, how we should allocate farms in South Africa, because how farms were allocated before we came, I told everybody that I'm not happy with how the farms are distributed. So there is always a way of trying to listen to constituencies and trying to balance what was happening and what must happen going forward. For example, Kitty, if you want to allocate farms, you must we advertise the farms. We invite those who are interested, those who have applied to the department. They come and write what I call aptitude test, and if they are successful, then they get the farm. And I said, this thing is not fair. We must change it. We must because somebody who did not go to school, somebody who is residing in the rural areas of South Africa, who've never been to school, but who has an experience of being a farmer, who can't succeed if you ask him to come and write a test. But this man is the real farmer. We must go and go to them and look for these real farmers and make sure that they are getting land. And also we remember, Cathy, as PAC, I can't say this is what must happen because PAC policy says we must repossess the land. No, that's what I can do. I'm using what is already in the department, but making sure that what people are saying outside satisfies them, and what the government is saying where we can try and change the policy and make sure that it fits well to our people. We are doing it, and successfully we're doing it right now, and people are happy, including PAC constituencies.
We're going to continue the conversation with the Minister for Land Reform and Rural Development, Mzwanele Nyoncho. It's 10:30, time for the latest news headlines.
Thank you very much, Cathy, and a very good morning to you. With the news headlines, the Energy Department has announced fuel price cuts effective from Wednesday. The DA has warned the ANC to reinstate Cilliers Brink as Tshwane mayor, or the party will no longer enter into any talks to save other municipalities. And the Eastern Cape Transport Department is warning all motorists to drive carefully as disruptive snow is expected to fall over the high-lying areas in the province. A full news update coming up at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 17 rand 10 to the dollar, 22 rand 91 to the pound, and 19 rand 12 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE mainly higher in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are weaker this hour. Gold is trading at $2,658. Platinum, $998 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $72.88 a barrel.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain, but paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny, and down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti, Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
S3. When 26-year-old Annika got tired of high insurance premiums giving her the runaround, she gave OUTsurance a call. She now pays an unbelievable 827 Rand per month to insure her silver 2022 VW Polo Vivo Trendline. SMS out to 30754 for an Outsurance quote to see how much you could save. That's out to 30754 today. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
We continue the conversation on The Talking Point. We're in conversation with the Minister for Land Reform and Rural Development, Mzwane Lenyoncho. He's also the president of the Pan-Africanist Congress. So, Minister, maybe then just give me three key things that you are targeting, especially as a strategy for the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development. I hear you on the issue of land claims and trying to clear the land claims. That's been an ongoing issue for the department. Have you set targets for yourself in terms of when exactly you want the cutoff to be for the department to have accomplished this? But maybe the other two key issues that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, firstly, thank you, Cathy. Firstly, Cathy, these claims, you see, by now, when I arrived in the department, I see that we're targeting to settle around 329 per year, let me say so. But we believe that no, that thing is not achievable. It means we'll take years and years and years to settle it, and want to change the strategy, including how to get money, even if we get the money through or in consultation with private sector, because it's a lot of money and it's above what we get in our budget for land claims. But we are getting there, Kathy. Of course, the problem now is that the National Treasury has identified some gap when it comes to this payment. Hence, maybe you've heard that we even suspended some officials in Eastern Cape through in this thing of land claims. So our target is to make sure that we settle these claims very, very soon, but also depending on the budget.
But you've just said sorry, you've just said that with your own calculations and budget allocations, it's going to be very difficult to even meet the target of 329 claims that you resolve per year. And I think that backlog is sitting at over 5,000, you said, from 1998?
Yes, we can. No. I'm saying we can reach that target, but that target for me is too small. We must settle more than that. We can settle 329 per year, but I'm saying it's too small. We should settle more than that per year.
So what's the target that you have set for yourself now?
If we have, if things are going well, because I'm engaging the Minister of Finance, that if we can talk and they can add resources to us, if we can settle at least 500 per year, we can get somewhere. That's one.
500 per year is still only in 5 years' time.
At least what the budget can. But if we can work with private sector and see if they can't also come in and assist us, we would want to settle more than that. In fact, our aim is to settle all of them in 1 year, but we can't. We know the reality on the ground. It's not what we think can happen. Also, Cathy, as you know, I'm also the Minister of Rural, it's land reform and rural development. Now, another strategy for me, Cathy, is to make sure that rural areas are developed. So we want to focus on rural development and make sure that we assist people in the rural areas to receive support from the department so that they work the land where they stay, so that we make sure that people do not go to big cities in search of jobs. So it's part of our program that we must go to rural areas. We're meeting local people, who are meeting rural traditional leaders, and we are meeting farmers in the rural areas, because we want to use the land that is there in the rural areas, develop it, make sure that in those rural areas people get jobs. Make sure that the land that is in the rural areas produces food. Make sure that people do not go to want to cap urbanization of our people going to look for jobs. That is another program that we're already embarking on with the department as part of rural development. We're meeting traditional leaders 2 weeks ago, where in Willowvale, where we're talking about with the chief of that area that they are producing. They want to do macadamia. In fact, they've started it, but they've got their own problems. We're trying to resolve those things. So that's what we are working on. Develop rural areas.
Mr. Nyonto, do you believe it's possible to curb urbanization?
Yes, it is possible. It is possible, Cathy, because I'm talking as a rural boy now. I know that at some point I went to Cape Town to look for a job, and it took me 3 years, and I did not get the job. So it is possible that you can produce jobs where you are staying. It is possible that you can curb urbanization. People work where they stay. It is possible. It's practical and it's doable.
Okay, all right. That's. I suppose it's one way of looking. I just don't know, Minister, just how practical that is, because urbanization is not a South African phenomenon; it's a global phenomenon, and it's just the way in which, patterns around the economy, sometimes evolve and change. And I don't know if curbing urbanization is necessarily the solution to the challenge. Absolutely, urbanization has to be managed. Rural areas have to be developed. Absolutely, but I don't know if it's possible to say that, as part of a strategic objective, you want to curb urbanization.
It is possible, Kate, because I am meeting with them. So I've visited almost all the provinces in South Africa, and I've seen people talking to me, youth from these areas. They are interested in working where they stay. Right. And it is possible. They are even saying the rate of crime in the urban areas is affecting them, because they go to Cape Town without working. They go to Gauteng without getting the jobs, and they end up in the streets. Some are becoming the victims of crimes in those areas. So in South African context, it is possible, because that's what people are saying themselves from the rural areas as I visit them. So it is possible.
Okay. And then what's the third thing strategically? So it's reducing the backlog of claims, curbing urbanization, bringing about rural development. What's the third thing?
No, it's to make sure that we allocate new farmers or farms to farmers. We make sure that these farms, when they are allocated, we want to make sure that they become commercial. Because the challenge that we're having now is to give people farms, or farms were given to our people, and yet they are not commercial. They are not using them. They just spend whatever money was given to them. So I want to make sure that these farmers get commercial, they contribute revenue, they also create jobs, and then that is going to happen. By the way, Kathy, this coming week we'll also be having a strategic workshop as government, where we'll come up clearly with what we must achieve in the next 4.5 years or 5 years. So we still the strategic meeting is this week in Gauteng.
Minister, is it a lot? Has it been overwhelming for you?
No, it has not been. It has been interesting for me. Very interesting.
Let me bring in yeah, go ahead.
It has not been overwhelming. It has been interesting.
Okay.
In fact, I'm enjoying what I'm doing very well.
All right. Let me bring in some of our listeners who want to contribute to this conversation. Mzwandile, you're in Gqeberha. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy and the Minister. Listen, I think after Mr. Gugu-Lenkwindi, that Minister has actually, I think, given me a chance, Cathy. He's a breath of fresh air. But I think what he's going to discover is the following. One, his department does not get sufficient capital, first and foremost, to buy farms. That is what has crippled his department. So my first question, if I may, just three questions. The first one, Cathy, I'd like the minister to be clear. What is the total cost of settling all land claims? Let's have that in numerical form. Then we can compare that with what is being allocated to him from the fiscus. The second point, we've ended up having in some of the investments we do to play the role of land reform. I'm now based in the Port Elizabeth Sandys River area. At the moment, in the Sandys River, which is Edo, concentration of citrus, we've had to coordinate more private investments to buy farms on behalf of transformation, which is more private allocation versus the Department of Land Reform. I'm hoping that at some point we can partner with the minister in addressing that issue. Then the other issue I want to address, Cathy, when the minister is saying rural development can lead can curb urbanization, I can't speak for the other provinces, but I can agree with him. Let me explain why. Because we used to do provincial planning for the entire Eastern Cape, and the minister can tell you the former homelands here, which was known as the Transkei, has got the highest undeveloped agricultural potential in the country, to the extent that if it was commercialized, it would outproduce the next three provinces. The issue, though, that the minister must address is the following. All of that rural land does not have title deeds. So when the minister is talking about dealing with the issue of land claims, he must answer this question. When do the people of the former homelands get title deeds issued to them? Because without title deeds, he's coined it correctly. Those people cannot attract commercial investment to commercialize them and turn those communal lands into commercial entities that begins to curb urbanization.
Okay.
Can you answer that one, please?
All right. Mzondile, thanks for that. Dintwe, you're in Tabanchu. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to the minister.
Yes, Dintwe, go for it.
Yeah, no, Cathy, the thing that I want to talk about is the policy that the minister has spoken about, and ask a question to say that the land will be allocated to women, to people with disability, to youth, and military veterans. I've been in this game now for 36 years that I've been farming, and of the 36 years, the 20 years I've been looking for land, doing applications to no success. And I want to know that is now a discrimination in reverse, that we as men, we won't be allocated land because we are not included in the policy of the department. And the second thing that I'm happy that the minister has also mentioned is that they will go out and look for real farmers. The failure of this department for not succeeding is that the department has been creating new farmers, ignoring real farmers that have been farming for years and years and years. That is why the department has failed. And in one of our FASA meeting in the Free State years back, the chief director of the department in the Free State told us the land that has been allocated to us black farmers, of the 100%, 80% of those farms have failed. And the reason for them, for those farmers to fail, is that it was new farmers who were created by the officials and the department.
Okay.
Now I think the minister will take a look at that and look for us, real farmers who are in this game.
All right, Dintwe, thanks for that. Pro, you're in Parktown. Good morning.
Cathy, how are you, Mr. Nyonto? Cathy, hello, Baba. Cathy, I've got only two questions. Mr. Nyonto, my first question is, ANC is failing Dala from 30 years back, still we are crying for our land. Now you are in this department. We as a member of the PAC were crying for land. We need the Iletu. awukhami ungaveli lento ngoba 3 months is too much. Lento implement leli lizwe libuye kubanikazi balo ngoba labo bantu balithathile abalithenganga. Another question is ngizwe uthi laba bantu choose imali over the land. No one who was supposed to be given money. The land must be taken. Kungasozobhadalwa umuntu imali. Laba belungu bafuna ukubhadalwa elizwe labo lethu libuye lemuva bona mabalithatha kubo gogo wethu banike emalini balibhadale ngemalini. Why we are supposed to pay our land back as those people they stole our land without paying us anything? Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that. Pro out in Parktown. Mr. Nyonto, let me give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, Cathy, when it comes to from the first caller, Mzwandile, we are not certain about how much in terms of figures that we must settle in terms of claims, because these claims, some of them are not yet settled. Some of them are settled, but we have not yet become certain this is what we are going to do. Remember, to settle a claim, you must get the valuer general to go and value the land and then come up with the actual figures. I'm talking about actual figures. Now, when it comes to title deeds, Cathy, this is exactly what we have started. I agree with Mzwandi that without a title deed, the farm cannot be commercial, the land cannot be commercial. And that is what we are doing right now. Hence, last week, I've handed over 36 title deeds to farmers in KZN, Newcastle. Hence that week in Northwest, we handed over title deeds and around 6,000 hectares of land to one CPA there and then family. So we are trying to make sure that people get title deeds, because even this thing of giving people leases of 30 years or 99-year leases is not working, because with a lease agreement, you cannot access money, you cannot access resources from land bank and so on. So we are really working on when I met with the kings of Eastern Cape, 7 of them, they were saying to me, let's see how do we make sure that these rural areas, they've got title deeds for them, so that they are able to develop the land. So we are working on those things. We're trying to make sure that the farmers or these rural areas land is getting title deeds so that they are able to do business. I agree with him. That's where we are working on right now as we speak. The third caller, I'm not sure this one who's saying I must just go and take the land because the land was not bought from us. Now I understand where he comes from, but there is law. We're working within the law. We take the oath when we get to the office. We commit ourselves that we'll respect the law. I can't just go and take the farm and give it to somebody else. Then the second caller, Cathy, was talking about farms not being, or they are being failing. I agree with him. That's the reason why I said we must go and look for real farmers. That's the reason why I said we must go and make sure that when we give you a farm, that farm is going to be productive. You must make sure also, Cathy, this narrative that black people cannot farm is not true. We must not give black people farms and then we don't give them support. We must give them support, we must give them farms and support, and make sure that we're making a follow-up, even if it means we're getting some people who are going to go and mentor them.
All right.
Who are going
Minister, I'm going to give you a chance to continue in a moment. We'll continue shortly.
The world's best football league makes its return to S3. Will Arsenal finally win their first title since 2004? Or will Man City continue their dominance of the league and win their 7th title under Pep Guardiola? Will the Dutchmen in Erik ten Hag and Arne Slot have something to say as Man United and Liverpool step in to contest for the title? But it's not only about winning the title. For some of the 20 teams, it's a chance to improve on their performances from last season. While for others, it's the battle to avoid relegation and stay in the top flight. Every team has a point to prove. This is not just football. This is a masterpiece being played out every weekend. Channel your best sport with the English Premier League. Saturdays at 3 p.m. on S3. Open up.
Mzansi, what has become of our country? Gender-based violence is eating our moral fabric and we can no longer afford to turn a blind eye. This violence affects us all, occurring in various forms including femicide, which is the intentional killing of a woman because of her gender. It takes place anywhere, anytime, even in our own safe spaces at home. Working together with social partners through the National Strategic Plan on GBVF, the government aims to create a GBVF-free South Africa. As we acknowledge the gains from our 30 years of freedom and democracy, let us also work together to break the cycle of GBVF on our home ground. Call the 24-hour GBVF Command Center number on 0800 428 428 or text *120*7867#. A message from the GCIS.
Tune in to catch the rebirth of Muvhango's new season on SABC2 every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. and experience the drama and excitement with new and intriguing characters and, of course, your usual favorites Aswidini, Rendani, Teboho and Khosi. It's a renaissance of new beginnings, love, secrets and betrayal. Remember, every Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. on SABC2.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on The Talking Point. We're in conversation with the Minister for Land Reform and Rural Development, Mzwanele Nyoncho, and we're still taking your calls for him this hour. Let me go to Mike. You're out in Newlands. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, Minister. Nice to hear you on the radio. And I have to say, I'm impressed by what you say in many cases. Just three quick questions. First of all, farming is a highly, it requires a lot of skills. Many of them are put in over, in some cases, 2 generations of families. So we need to have people that know and understand farming. Have you yourself ever run a farm or had any connection with farms? And if you don't, Minister, do you have somebody by your side that can assist you? As you heard, it's 82%, in fact, of the farms issued have failed. And by the way, I'm really a bit shocked by what you say about, we think black farmers. It's not a question of race, Minister. It's a question of taking people with absolutely no skills and then giving them a farm and then without any training. This skill needs to be honed and very carefully done, and it can only be done by not giving anybody a farm. It's got to go to somebody who's studied farming, has really got a skill for farming, and possibly is understudied by a farmer that's been in the business for many years. And then just one final thing I'd like to say is that you seem a little surprised that people want money. In this country, it's a fallacy, Minister, that people want land. That is just something that's peddled by our ANC government. It's an emotive issue that divides us as a people. People, in fact, on a survey done by the IRR, only 5% wanted land. 5% wanted land. The rest of them, the 94 claimants, took the cash because farming is hard work. It's not something one can take lightly. And I think we must tackle it from the view that let's get the best people in for the job. It's not a question of black or white. It's the right person for the job because food security, you'll agree, Minister, is most important.
Yeah, the only challenge there, Mike, is that the claims are not based on what one's qualifications are. They're based on the legitimacy of claim that an individual has or groups of individuals would have to a particular piece of land. So the criteria that you're talking about is not the criteria that is used to assess land claims. Ntantla, you're in KZN. Good morning.
Good morning, my sister, and good morning to the Minister. Same as Sister Cathy. The Minister is not being honest with us because when you question him about the issue of their policy, on about the land is not answering you properly. You see, when you look at 1961 Constitution, Act 31, Section 12C, where it speaks about compensation which may be payable to the holder of an unrestricted rights in the respect of land shall be taken into account to the extent to which the rights brings about diminution of the fair market value of the land. Mike Newland speaks so highly about preserving the rights of the white farmers to continue farming in this land and not ensuring that the majority of people or black people who have been stolen, who their land has been stolen from them by the same white farmers who got assisted on neutralizing that farmers and the proper skills. The ANC and the PAC, that are the sellouts. They mustn't come here and trash us off and speak about the land claims which are still from 1998. They can't resolve because of the same Section 25, which is same as Act 31 of 1961.
Okay. Nhlanhla, we're going to have to leave it there because we're, of course, running out of time, and I want to give the Minister an opportunity to respond to your questions too. Mr. Nyonso, go for it.
Thanks, Cathy. Let me respond to Mike. Mike must also understand this has nothing to do with race. So it is true that people are saying black people cannot farm, and that is not true. You must also know that white people were not born with a skill to farm. They were successful in farming because they were given subsidies, they were given money, they were given everything to make sure that the farms become productive. So it is our responsibility to give land to black people. And after giving them land, we must give them training, we must give them support, we must give them resources, we must make sure that they understand, we must train them. Only last week, Cathy, I attended a graduation of 108 youth who were given skills and trained by the department on different skills. And those people must be trained and make sure that they get into the space and start farming. So we are going to make sure that people get skills to farm. This last caller who is calling ANC and PAC sellouts, I'm not sure, but I understand these new revolutionaries who also imagining of a revolution that is going to take place, and they are busy labeling others sellouts when in fact at some point they were part of the system and they were part of everything that has been happening in this country, and they were happy where they were. So let me not respond to those allegations of being a sellout or sell-in. I don't mind about that, but all I can say, Keith, is that we want to encourage our people to come forward and apply for land. We want to encourage our people that if we must settle your claim, make sure that you prefer land over money, because land will come up with support. We want to encourage those who have been, for example, the one who was saying he has been applying for the past 30 years. We want to encourage them to come forward and say, this is what I've been trying to do to get a farm, and I've not been successful, and I am a real farmer. I will personally go to his farm or where he is keeping his livestock and see that this man is a real farmer, and I can assure you he's going to get land. We want to make sure that our people get land, and those who are only interested in land, and that land becomes productive, and they get skills, they farm. This has nothing to do with race, but the land must be given back to the people. Right. They deserve it. With land, they've got dignity. With land, they will be, at least they will be able to take care of their families, of their communities, and at the end of the day, the farm will contribute to the revenue of the country.
Minister for Land Reform and Rural Development, Mzwanele Nyonso, will leave it there for this morning.
The top stories this hour: the fuel prices are set to decrease this week, and the DA warns the ANC over brink. A very good morning to you. Motorists have been given further reprieve with the Energy Department announcing fuel price cuts effective from Wednesday. The department also announced interim adjustments for road transport tariffs for petrol and diesel for the Nelson Mandela Bay area due to the temporary closure of the Port Elizabeth port, as the product will have to be sourced from East London for that region. Here's the department's Robert Make.
Petrol 93 octane will decrease by 1 rand 6 cent. 95 octane will decrease by 1 rand 14 cents per litre. Diesel will decrease by 1 rand 12 and 1 rand 14 cents per litre. Illuminating paraffin at retail level will decrease by 1 rand 48 cents per litre, whilst LP gas will increase by 23 cents per kilogram. The reasons for this adjustment are the lower oil prices and stronger rand against the US dollar during the period under review.
The DA has warned the ANC to reinstate Celia Brink as Tshwane mayor, or the party will no longer enter into any talks to save other municipalities. Brink, who's been the Tshwane mayor since March last year, was removed from office through a motion of no confidence during a council sitting last week. DA Federal Council Chair Helen Ziller says there has to be a give and take between parties in the GNU.
You cannot have economic growth and investment in the metros if they are unstable and if there are motions of no confidence every second month and if there is very little service delivery. So we have started tentative discussions around stabilizing Nelson Mandela Bay, eThekwini, and Ekurhuleni. Those are absolutely critical, and we have been in tentative local discussions to start resolving those problems. I've said to the ANC that unless Celia Brink is put back in Tshwane, we are not going to play nice in the other metros.
South Africa, alongside other countries, needs to speed up the pace of progress to realize the aspirations of the Pact for the Future and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. This is the message delivered in President Cyril Ramaphosa's letter today, following his working visit to the UN General Assembly last week. He says the pact presents the world with an opportunity not only to bridge the development divide, but also to reinvigorate the multilateral system by reforming both global financial institutions as well as the UN Security Council. Busichi Mombe has more.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says in line with the Pact for the Future, political leaders from the global West must meet their commitments towards assisting low-income countries achieve their SDGs. Additionally, he says the pact commits member states to strengthen multilateral action towards a new agenda for peace. The president says when South Africa assumes the presidency of the G20 later this year, as a signatory to the Pact for the Future, the country will push for people-driven, sustainable development to become a reality. Busichi Mombe, SABC News.
The 27-year-old suspect arrested in connection with the murder of a 23-year-old woman and her toddler at Dan village outside Zanin in Limpopo is appearing in the Nkowankwa Magistrates Court today. This after the discovery of the two bodies in the suspect's burned house on Thursday. Police say they're still investigating the incident. Spokesperson Hlulani Mashawa says the suspect is being charged with the double murder and a charge of domestic violence.
Preliminary investigation revealed suspicious behavior by the 27-year-old suspect prior to the fire. Witnesses reported noticing unusual actions, including moving furniture and an unusual smell emanating from the suspect's house. Shortly thereafter, they observed a smoke coming from the house, leading to the suspect fleeing the scene. The victims who visited the suspect from Mariveni village were certified dead at the scene by the emergency medical services.
Eastern Cape Transport is warning all motorists to drive carefully as disruptive snow is expected to fall over the high-lying areas in the province. The department says that traffic officers will be dispatched to all the affected areas to monitor the situation there. And Hamas says its senior commander in Lebanon was killed by an Israeli strike on a refugee camp in the south of Lebanon. This after Israel expanded its military operation in Lebanon overnight, saying it struck dozens of Hezbollah sites in the Bekaa Valley in southern Lebanon. A separate group, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, said that 3 of its leaders died in a strike on an apartment near Beirut's city centre. More from the BBC's Yolanda Nell.
We have now Israeli military action on multiple fronts at the same time, still very much concentrated on Lebanon, where the Israeli military chief of staff has said Hezbollah must be hit hard. We've been hearing these assessments that the Israeli military believes that much of Hezbollah's firepower has been destroyed, suggesting this is why we haven't really seen, even since Hassan Nasrallah was killed, big barrages of rockets being fired.
The top story, motorists have been given further reprieve with the Energy Department announcing fuel price cuts effective from Wednesday. For SAFM News, Cathy Mohlahlana.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Good morning, House Cathy and your guests. May you please ask your guests what are they going to do with these officials who are supposed to distribute land accordingly, not to their loved ones or their relatives. Like in my province in the northwest, we can apply for that, but we'll never get it. The land is only for those who are close or to their relatives or whoever, because there are cooperatives that our people have formed here, but they didn't get anything. And they can even go to an extent of they are using their cooperative's name as if they bought it for them and bought it for their own people. Thank you.
Hi, Cathy. I just want to respond to that caller that called in, talking about farming need 2 generation. That you must not impose white weaknesses to black. We don't need 2 generation to do farming. We don't need it. We black people, we are good listeners, we are fast learners, we are intelligent. We don't need 2 generation. Because if we say 2 generation, we're talking about 40 to 80 years. You only need a good apprentice, and then that's it. And then we go and do it. We build the civilization all over the world. We never build it after 2 generations. You understand? And yes, it is a matter of race. It is a matter of race because we are the majority who are producing in farming.
Man, Cathy, man, Molo, man. This minister is busy embracing and enduring the fruits and the benefits of the position he's in. You see, that's simple as that. Otherwise, he's nowhere near fighting for the retainment of the land to its rightful owners. You see, because first and foremost, he talks about being guided by or binded by the statute of the land. Yet, was there respect of the statute or even the rightful owners at the time when the land was taken? There was no statute in place that was involved. Now we must embrace the statute that is even established and enacted by the people who stole the land themselves. You see, no, man. These whole things are set up. You see, these leaders are just given secret handshake, simple as that, by the land takers.
Good morning, Cathy, the minister and the listeners. Mhlekazi, we have a problem in Langa, Cape Town. The Indabeni land restitution program is taken a long time, it's almost 35 years now. I don't know what is happening. Please, could you please find out? Please, it's Ringo from...
Good morning, Sis Cathy. Chu kuGompo. Umhlekazi lo uhleli naye apha. Ungathi womuyela inqatha. There is no sense of agency on his part, where he comes with his own plans, influenced by his own political background, to say these are our policy proposals that we are coming with into the GNU or into the department. What he's telling us is that he's going to deal with low-hanging fruits of what has already been there, that is ANC policy. So if there is a government of national unity, there shouldn't be an ANC policy. There should be a policy of the government of national unity, which would tell us, as this government, what is it that they are going to do, not to finish the work of the ANC.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana, weekdays 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, let's get then into our final conversation for this morning. We're going to be looking at a study conducted by the Human Sciences Research Council alongside the University of the Free State. They were looking into democracy, 30 years of democracy, and really trying to profile the voices, their experiences of South Africans in this particular community. Professor Charles Hongoro is the strategic lead in the Developmental Capable and Ethical State Research Division of the HSRC. He's on the line. Prof. Hongoro, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners.
Dr. Gray Magaiza is a senior lecturer and deputy director in the Center for Gender and African Studies at the University of the Free State. Dr. Magaiza, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners.
Prof. Hongoro, let me maybe begin with you. So 30 years, of course, is where we find, 30 years post-democracy, rather, is where we find ourselves as a country. I'm interested in your decision to, number one, have a study that seeks to capture what it is that South Africans have to say about this moment, but also why Qwaqwa. It could have been anywhere in South Africa.
Yes. Thank you very much, Cathy. Let me start by indeed giving you an overview of this project, which the HSRC, under the leadership of the current CEO, Professor Sarah Motsetwa, was to contribute to our celebrations of democracy. And the idea was that to identify what to celebrate and to reflect on what still needs to be done, we need to contribute by carrying out a study where we don't just focus on big national surveys, but focus on specific localities. And the reason for focusing on localities was to ensure that the voices of the voiceless, who sometimes get lost as we discuss as experts what democracy is and what it has achieved, we felt that it is important to talk to people at the local level so that they give us a sense of their lived experiences. Because democracy can only be seen to have been successful when people begin to say concrete things that this is what we are experiencing. So we then we are conducting this study in many other provinces, and in Free State is in Qwaqwa, as you have said, working with the University of the Free State. And the question is why Qwaqwa? We know that Qwaqwa is one of those purest areas, and in the Free State, it is a former homeland, and the complexity of its history provides an opportunity for us to see how indeed the change since 1994 has actually led to any concrete changes among the people. And it is for that reason that we then started working with USS Qwaqwa campus to say, let's talk to people in Qwaqwa and hear what they say. But it is quite interesting to see what came out of there, which my colleague will also share when he responds. it is that it's very clear to people that political democracy, I think people all acknowledge that it has happened, it has changed, but there still needs to change the structure of the economy, to change the structure of the institutions to allow people to see differences, particularly when it comes to service delivery. So in a nutshell, that's really why we came up with this project, which is in all 9 provinces, but in the Free State, it is focusing on Kwakwa.
Dr. Magaiza, South Africans talk about how they feel about this democracy every single day. We have, of course, unique, different experiences of what we believe this democracy has yielded for us as a country, for us as individuals. What makes it different when you are trying to go through that journey, through the methodology of researchers, and collect data, effectively collect these voices, these opinions as data that can be published and have some form of academic backing, where the research methodology has to be on point, where it actually is a bit more meaningful than just us speaking about our experiences?
No, thank you so much for that question, Cathy. So when we do this type of research, you need to emphasize a 360 view of community realities. So in as much as you try to get the voices, we also try to get other experiences outside of those voices. So for example, we did a spatial temporal analysis of Kwakwa from 1994 to today, to just look at the land use and cover changes that have occurred in the area from 1994 to today. That has an implication. We can infer from that livelihood implications. Are we seeing an increase in, for example, agricultural activities? Are we seeing a decline? And I can tell you now, there has been a decline in agricultural activities that sort of reflects that has implications for food security at the local level. Can we connect that to democracy? Maybe. There were also other approaches that we used, participatory co-creation with community members to really give their voice credence and also create ownership of the research processes. We did focus group discussions, key informant interviews, windshield surveys, just to mention some of the approaches that we followed. But one thing that constantly comes out in terms of their understanding of democracy, I can tell you now, it's complicated, or rather it's complex. Remember, Kwakwa was a homeland, so there is still this nostalgia with the homeland, in that there was self-governance, they could mobilize and organize for their own selves. Democracy comes, it takes that ability for the community to mobilize away. It's almost taken to a next level, to the state level, which has kind of left the community exposed, even when certain things are happening in the community, like corruption, like poor service delivery. It almost, in the homeland, they could solve it very quickly. But now there are processes which have to be followed. It's a good example of democracy, but at the end of the day, if the democracy is not personalized to local views, local experiences, local interests, it becomes a foreign, just a foreign experience for them.
What were the kind of questions that you were asking the participants?
Yeah, so we would ask them, what have been your experience? What is your understanding of democracy? What have been your experiences of democracy? What are the advantages, disadvantages? Those kinds of typical questions along that line. And how have you benefited from democracy as an individual, as a community? And do you think can you give a narration over the last 30 years of what has been happening? Has it improved your life? One of the things post-1994 is better life for all. Have you experienced this better life for all? Can you bring it down to your personal level? Unfortunately, Kwakwa is one of the poorest areas, I think, in the Free State and to a certain extent in South Africa. And people, in the area we could pick out that, poverty is written on the wall. It's a reality.
Prof, perhaps it's a good place to also bring you in here around some of these themes that emerged out of the research and communities' own understanding of democracy, because part of what this research shows, as Dr. Magaiza is also highlighting, is that there is a difference between what people perceive as should be the result of democracy and, of course, the actual experience of democracy and what democracy means.
Indeed. And I think part of the reason for us to actually ask people was to have this lived experience of democracy. And the manifestation of that lived experience can be seen in the form of things like their access to, basic services, for example. We have seen, they do acknowledge, for instance, that since 1994, access to education has improved. But then in the last 10 or so years, the question they would raise has to do with issues of quality of education. Similarly, they would raise issues about having access, electricity penetration in terms of spreading the coverage has been high. But again, the question comes of the quality of the service and, of course, the costs. It was quite interesting when one respondent gave an analogy in the recent reflection session we had in Kwakwa, where they said, when we got our freedom, we were given, for example, an RDP house. But then when I got this free RDP house, it had a meter for electricity and it also had a meter for water. Now, as I tried to live in this house, the bill, at least even though it's subsidized for some, was coming up, and I ended up owing the municipalities some money. Now, the question is, what one can draw from there is to say that in as much as there's been progress around key strategic basic services, one needs to look at these things from a holistic point of view, so that communities can begin to see the kind of democracy that they anticipated in 1994. But what also came out, which this one was also particular in Kwakwa, was that communities were also now beginning to say that, yes, it's good to get free this and that, but I think they also have agency in the sense that they can play a role in, if necessary, contribute to their own community development, which I think is a good sign, because this project, we did not structure it only to reflect on the bad and the past, but also to be aspirational in the sense of what then can we do, given some of the challenges, as you know. Part of the problems of service delivery have to do with the capacity of local authorities to maintain and to improve the quality of services. So I think we were able to get interesting suggestions around community agency and themselves beginning to play a big role. Similar examples were given around healthcare as well. But of course, there's been an improvement in access. I'm talking physical access here. But when we talk about proper access to care, we're talking about access to quality care. Again, that is similar to education, becomes important to say, no, we do have access to clinics, but there are a bit of challenges. So they were able to begin to suggest ways in which we can maintain what has been put out there and also make sure that the quality is good. Similar results came from sanitation, access to sanitation services, and also access to water. But this problem still persists, which begins to suggest, I guess, now that the GNU is emphasizing focusing or building capacity of local municipalities, it might really lead to a change. But yes, people really, expectations were just too high. They are certainly high, and I think rightfully so. Their expectation is that we need to improve the quality of the services. But inequality remains, and it remains stubborn, which begins to suggest that unless the structures of the economy, the institutions that are supposed to support this and capacity building within the state is improved, we might continue to have these challenges going forward.
Gray, what were some of the observations in as far as the different generations' view on democracy and the impact that they believe it had had? Speak to me about the nuances there.
Good. Thank you for that question. So we did emphasize an intergenerational analysis of democracy to just find out, are there any differences there? You'll actually be surprised that the older generations, we did have in our sample people who are in their 50s and 60s who wished for the homeland. Pre-democratic Kwakwa, as young people, they could be employed, they had jobs, and now they look at their children who are not in employment, not in any, who form basically part of the needs, not in employment, education, and training. So that's the older generation. Then when we spoke with the younger generation, the irony was that the younger people have hope. They are trying to create their own projects, but they feel frustrated by a disenabling local government system, lack of space to fund, lack of space to enable the realization of their own intentions. And most of the young people felt that it seems like there's a growing culture of connections. You need to be connected to be able to access certain local government resources, and this is quite disheartening for them. So you have these views, but you also have other young people who were making it by themselves, getting into these modern employment streams, social media, photography, all those things. So you have this mix, but one thing that was quite clear there is the majority of young people seem to be, they have hope, but they are also frustrated.
All right, we're going to continue the conversation in a moment. We're looking at Democracy at 30, a study by the Human Sciences Research Council. And as you heard, it's been done in all 9 provinces. We're focusing on the findings from Qwaqwa. It's 11:30.
A very good morning to you with the news headlines. Cathy Mohlahlana. Motorists have been given further reprieve with the Energy Department announcing fuel price cuts effective from Wednesday. President Cyril Ramaphosa says South Africa, alongside other countries, needs to speed up the pace of progress to realize the aspirations of the Pact for the Future and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And the longtime leader of France's right-wing National Rally Party, Marine Le Pen, is due to go on trial today in Paris. Details of these and other stories at noon.
Put a spring in your step with the Espresso Morning Show.
That's right. Join us for fresh ideas, blooming trends, and vibrant tunes that are sure to brighten your day.
Discover the best ways to enjoy this season's beauty, from garden tips to spring fashion.
Come on now. Plus, get inspired with lively interviews and my favorite, the latest in entertainment.
Basically, start your mornings right with us. That's weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m. only on S3.
At the South African breweries, the beers are brewed with 95% local and natural ingredients. From seed to sip, every step of the process supports a thriving agricultural sector and sustains over 250,000 livelihoods. So, next time you enjoy a cold one, remember, you're supporting local farmers. South African breweries, brewing more than just beer, brewing a future with more cheers. South Africa, be sharp, not for sales to persons under the age of 18.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
We continue the conversation on the talking point, unpacking research coming out of the Human Sciences Research Council, looking at democracy, the 30 years of democracy, and really documenting the voices, the experiences of South Africans and what they believe the impact of this democracy has been on their lives. Professor Charles Hongoro is the strategic lead in the Developmental, Capable and Ethical State Research Division of the Human Sciences Research Council, and Dr. Gray Magaiza is a senior lecturer and deputy director in the Center for Gender and African Studies at the University of the Free State. Professor Hongoro, let me come to you, because there are, of course, all of these different themes that you had covered, or that you've covered as part of this research. Was there anything in particular which stood out for you, which you would say maybe surprised you, or that you weren't expecting?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. What I really thought was quite surprising was this positive outlook amongst the youth, like my colleague mentioned, where they were beginning to suggest, in fact reflect, that maybe the euphoria of democracy, where things seemed to be free and people thought it will remain free and accessible to all, where they were now saying, look, we need to do something ourselves. What we need is to focus on acquiring skills that will allow us to be self-sufficient. There were very specific examples in Kwartwa where, the youth, in fact, would come out and say, I go to a TVET college, but the reason why I'm going to the TVET college is because I want to acquire specific concrete skills so that when I finish, I'm able to do work. And the young man was able to say, I own now 10 hectares. I'm not sure if he was connected or not, but the fact of the matter is to say he is willing to work the land using the skills. And there are many other practical skills that they were calling for and encouraging each other to acquire. So I found that quite interesting and surprising. But again, the many other issues are quite pervasive when you look at some of the areas where we're doing the similar work, like one of the sites is in Vuwani, the other sites are in KZN and Sweetwater's Wentworth, where you're beginning to see the challenges of, let me call them democracy, where issues of substance abuse becoming a big issue in our society, particularly among us, the youth. But again, the call being made that we need to skill our youth so that they can be able to look after themselves and not just to look for jobs. But the issue of unemployment is always a big one, and I think part of this solution from the youth of saying, let's get practical skills, might actually assist in reducing that. That's one of the things that I found quite interesting, that there's still some hope.
Gray, the levels of frustration that were expressed, it seems it ran across with all of the focus groups at democracy. What does that tell us? And I mean, how do you think that this should inform the work that is done by policymakers and political organizations, especially when we talk about what democracy means and what it represents? Because more and more we're seeing globally that the idea of democracy itself is, continuously coming under threat, and people are asking questions about whether democracy is truly the answer to dealing with problems such as inequality, poverty, etc.
No, thank you so much for that. One of the expectations, in terms of how that emerged from our study, and is that democracy, simply put, must deliver socio-economic benefits. There has to be a what we can call a democratic dividend to any society that undergoes a democratic transformation. Now, that's the ideal. The reality is there is constant erosion of either a state's ability or specifically a state's ability to deliver on these expectations. And there has been serious leakages that have been occurring, which have limited the ability of a state, especially in the case of South Africa, to deliver on these expectations, the democratic dividend. So from a policy perspective, it's really important that the views from the grassroots, the voices from what we would also call it the subaltern, people whom would never engage with, their voices need to inform the policy directions that are coming up. And this is one of the key values from this study. There has been efforts towards supporting, reducing poverty, especially in places like Kwakwa, but more still needs to be done. But more not in the sense of giving a fish, but more in the sense of really capacitating poor communities to be able to move, to be able to have social mobility, and also to ensure that poor communities have access and ability to participate in the economy as producers and also as consumers, but not just as consumers as well. So there is still a lot more to link the poor people with the economy, especially in places like Kwakwa.
Okay. Thanks for that contribution. Stay, you're calling from KZN. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Today, I just have two questions for maybe both of the guests. The first one is that if we had professionals to take government posts from ministers to deputy to DJs, and maybe remove politicians or remove politics, reduce it to churches, the impact of politics, if we did remove it, and have people who come from institutions of university and technicon, people who doesn't have any contact with politics. I'm asking you what kind of democracy would have, especially for black people. Number two, what I would like to ask is this. Countries like Sweden, Finland, we know what happened like a long time ago. Now they are having a democracy. I would like to know if they have the same democracy that we have here in the African countries, here in the African continent.
All right. Thanks, Tay. Yunus? Or Janusz, rather. Apologies. Janusz, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. First of all, I'm quite surprised. It's very soft, I think it's very sort of positive way these panels are talking about our country and our democracy. They're saying that the youth is very actually happy because of opportunities and so on. We know that unemployment among the youth is the highest, and all the other stuff, poverty is huge. But sort of the discussion about the democracy is not so bad actually. We can be okay. I'd like to bring the point after the Second World War. After abolishment of the fascism, and even after abolishment of communism, what happened there? Why these countries, after 30 years or even 10 years, had a bigger positive input to improve the situation, economic situation of the people? First of all, my point is that they didn't go and they didn't punish those who, let's say, in Germany were the members of the Wehrmacht and other Germans, police and whatever, the same as the communists. They didn't go to say you are the member of the Communist Party, so now your children will not get the access to the jobs. That's what happened in our country. We are divided. The government divided us by the affirmative action and BEE, and always we blame somebody else for the failure of the government.
Okay.
So, my question is why these countries, after such a demolishing economy, they improved 30 years later. Look into the German 30 years and other countries. They were on the top. Why we are not there?
All right. Janusz, thanks for the question out in Cape Town. Ofenze in Rustenburg says, in my opinion, we, the youth, not only feel hopeless, we feel betrayed. After 30 years of this democracy, everything is literally getting worse. The older generation are the ones who created this disgusting culture of corruption and bribery. We must give sexual favors to our fathers and mothers. To be given employment, qualifications are no longer important. It really is about who you know. That's just one view there. Charles, let me give you a chance then to respond to our listeners very briefly, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I think the first question was what would happen if we were to remove politics and then put in government professionals who only have the skills. Unfortunately, the reality of this type of constitutional democracy we have, where we have elections, we are still bound to still have political leadership. I think the key issue is we need good governance. We need good leadership. The public sector needs to be professionalized because these are the technical experts and who actually deliver or translate policy into practice. So I would really support the notion of professionalizing the public service. And the issue of good and ethical leadership is quite paramount in making sure that the good policies we have are actually implemented. So the experiences of Finland and Sweden, I think, in my view, it is because they do have leaders that lead ethically, and the governance, particularly at local levels, have the capacity to deliver and translate policy into practice. I think that's where we have a real challenge there, and the disjuncture between what people expect and what the government can deliver.
Gray, briefly from you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I couldn't agree more with Prof. Charles. Technocratizing the civic sector is one way of doing it. We need to really think what we mean when we say cadre deployment. There has to be capability in whichever cadre we deploy wherever they are deployed. And so the issue of the I'm going to skip the Scandinavian one. I'm going to talk about the issue of youth unemployment. It's the GNU is one example of the system recorrecting itself. There has been a long trend where things have gone off the rail, and putting in the GNU is one way to correct it. And I think to answer the previous colleague why SA is not working, maybe 30 years now, let's just give the GNU an opportunity. Let's put the politics aside and let's see how far that goes. I couldn't agree more with the one who says the current situation is a disgusting culture. If you don't have connections, then it's the similar views we got from the young people in Kwakwa. That the hope is also underpinned by the frustration as well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for coming onto the show and sharing this work with us. Dr. Gray Magaiza is with the University of the Free State, and Professor Charles Hongoro is with the HSRC. That's where we leave things on the talking point for this Monday morning. The show back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Do you know that 80% of South Africa's barley is sold to the beer industry? This locally sourced barley, along with other natural ingredients, plays a vital role in beer production, contributing 2.2 billion rand to the country's agricultural GDP. Join South African breweries on the 3rd of October in Caledon as we dive into the state of the beer economy. SAB, brewing a future full of cheers. South Africa, be sharp. Not for sale to persons under 18.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of A Life of Purpose, written by Luvuyo Wochela and Lumkile Wiseman Kuhlu. The reader is Lerato Velase.
Transforming the accounting practice, taking leadership of a troubled UNITRA. On the heels of the death of Sabelo Magwenju, the academic and administration structure of UNITRA that had taken nearly a decade to construct collapsed. The records say that the months of March and April of 1984 witnessed a catastrophic student strike that brought UNITRA to a standstill. But such explanations do not take into account prior incidents that eventually triggered the problems. In the writings of Tim Gibbs and Clive Napier, such incidents were cogs in the political wheels and the crisis of legitimacy of the Transkei. In a nutshell, UNITRA, which had attracted in students from different backgrounds, a cadre of radical and liberal academics of various nationalities, was not ideal for the apartheid government. One of the early architects of UNITRA, Chabane Manganyi, who had conscripted Wiseman into the university management, saw the signs as early as 1980, when politicians who hitherto had appeared unmindful of UNITRA's affairs suddenly changed their approach after the move to a new site early in 1980. About 1980, they started being interested in things, and it was then that they started picking up what were described as South African students and taking them to secret places and torturing them, and then taking them to the border and so on. I think that is what killed the Transkei dream, at least for me. Manganyi, who became one of the earliest to leave UNITRA in 1981, mainly because he could not accept the continual brutal treatment of students, attempted in vain to stop it. Having realized that he had sacrificed himself by attempting an open dialogue with Transkeian politicians about torture, he resigned and left for